Rambo First Blood Part 2 is easily one of the most important action movies ever made. It heavily influenced 80s action, creating a whole genre of movies and tropes which can still be felt and seen even in modern cinema. It changed the way we view the genre and is considered one of the best examples of a golden era hardcore 80s action movie. It gave birth to countless sequels, parodies, knockoffs, imitations, and inspirations. But more importantly, Rambo, and in particular his archetype of character, got so deeply absorbed into pop culture that you can still see people reference it in modern movies, TV shows, comedy, and even day-to-day life. Stallone created one of the most iconic characters ever made, up there with his portrayals of Rocky or Cobra.
You have the right to remain silent.
The thing that most people don't seem to realize about the early Rambo movies, and especially about Rambo 2, is the fact that these types of action movies weren't as common in the early 80s as people might think, and when they finally did start being made in droves, they were often either heavily criticized for their excessive violence or outright censored. When the first two Rambo movies came out, they were under a lot of fire from critics and especially conservative Christian groups, claiming that these movies are too gory, violent, and a bad influence on young adults, children, and society in general, mostly basing their claims on very outdated moral ideas, thinking that they had any right to dictate to other people how they should live and what they should be allowed to watch.
Scientific research internationally showing a link between televised and social violence. So,
yes, I do. I think for children under a certain age, it could be very harmful and influence.
The certificate for Rambo is 15, isn't it?
Exactly, which I think is far too young.
Okay, what about you?
Shut the fuck up! Thank you.
There was even a strong movement that tried to ban any and all horror movies, particularly being hung up on the Evil Dead movies because they were apparently so terrifying and bad that these Christians and conservatives could feel the demons actually coming out of the screen. One of these people, during a debate, claimed that his son wet the bed because he was so afraid of these films, which they called video nasties. And of course, because his child couldn't handle a horror movie, that means that this man thought it would only be right if they would be all banned or heavily censored.
To go into my boy's bedroom, he was in a crouched position with his hands between his knees, screaming, screeching in fact, a sickening sound.
Swallow this.
What do you say we have some champagne, huh, baby? Huh?
Sure.
After all, I'm a man and you're a woman. At least last time I checked.
In 1982, under the Obscene Publications Act, police seized 22,000 cassettes in the metropolitan area alone.
Rambo 1 was also controversial and claimed to be too violent, which is ironic considering that in the entire movie only one person dies, and that's by accident and not even directly due to Rambo. Rambo himself, surprisingly, does his best to stay as pacifistic as possible and avoids killing. The only reason he gets into a fight with the cops in the first place is because they were clearly abusing him, his rights, and treating him like vermin, clearly not realizing that abusing a former special forces soldier who suffers from PTSD and is also built like an absolute machine is a very bad idea. It's really only in the second movie that Rambo turns into the iconic character everyone knows, and it's here that he unleashes his darkness and goes wild on the commies. and once the action hits, it hits damn good. Rambo is a killing machine that won't ever stop, and it really does feel like no bullet can hit him. And should any bullet ever hit his body, it would just crumble to dust, not even leaving a scratch. Rambo goes wild here and doesn't hold back at all. He shows off his creativity and kills his enemies in the most unique ways possible, blending in with the environment and taking them out one by one like a demon from hell. One of the most iconic elements of this movie are the explosive arrows that he made himself and that further show what an insane badass he is. These arrows rip through people like paper and leave nothing alive in their wake, causing massive explosions, rains of blood, and chaos. But also, this is where the iconic image of him running around shirtless with the bandana around his head comes from. And while it may have been parodied and copied countless times ever since, it's still genius and legendary. It's an image that burns itself into your head, especially since we're talking about Stallone in his absolute prime, full of glorious abs and muscles. This movie is the reason so many women want their boyfriends, husbands, and lovers to look like a savage, because it's the ultimate form of badass masculinity. A man running around the jungle, a lone wolf surviving the harsh elements and weather while killing communists without mercy, licking his paws and stalking his prey. Today, this type of story or action might not seem all that exciting or original because it has been done countless times ever since Rambo came out. But this movie is the ground on which all of those action pillars are standing. When it came out, no other movie had this type of unapologetic action and visual appeal. That's not to say that action movies or even violent action movies did not exist before. The spaghetti western movies such as the Clint Eastwood Dollars trilogy is a perfect example of movies that were, at least at the time, perceived as hardcore violent action, and you have to give Clint Eastwood credit for creating a character that basically inspired and influenced the entire action genre to a point where you can see a bit of his character in almost every single action hero ever since, including Rambo.
I don't think it's nice you laughing.
And of course, there was a whole load of crime and gangster movies back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. But Rambo changed the whole genre. Here you have one man that is an absolute killer machine taking on hordes of enemies, a pure one-man army that will never be stopped nor run out of bullets or breath. The scope, the explosions, and fighting choreography as seen in Rambo 2 had never been done before in such a way. It was groundbreaking at the time.
What most people call hell, he calls home.
What most people might not realize about the first two Rambo movies is that they were both anti-war movies. In fact, the anti-war elements are not even subtle, often directly spelled out by Rambo or shown through his actions. He is a man who suffers from extreme PTSD due to the Vietnam War, a man whose soul will forever be trapped in Vietnam even if he physically leaves the place. When these movies came out, veteran treatment in the US wasn't that great and there wasn't a lot of treatment against PTSD. In fact, PTSD was not even taken that seriously and research in that area was nowhere near as extensive as it is now. Veterans were often left to their own devices and simply expected to adapt and adjust to civilian life, carrying on as if nothing had happened. Which understandably wasn't exactly an easy thing to do after you witnessed hundreds of firefights, explosions, dead friends and enemies, blood and gore, or saw firsthand the effects of napalm bombs on civilians, the Viet Cong, or even your own men. Truly horrific stuff that no one, not even a man like Rambo, could ever forget, adjust to, or cope with.
Nothing is over! Nothing! You just don't turn it off! It wasn't my war. You asked me, I didn't ask you.
The first movie made the point about how the public was treating these veterans like crap, worst of all coming from cops who are supposed to uphold the law and be a shining example of moral and helpful values, at least in theory.
Come on.
Don't bullshit me. Bullshit.
The only reason why Rambo's PTSD kicked back in was because of how the public was mistreating him, causing him to snap. And he's just one man out of thousands. Men that had to go through absolute hell because their government told them to, or because they were convinced of fighting for a just cause. They witnessed awful things, and when they return home, they aren't treated as heroes, but as outcasts and villains.
And I see all those maggots at the airport protesting me, spitting, calling me baby killer and all kinds of foul crap.
Had the sheriff and his deputies simply decided to buy him a coffee and a meal, things would probably have turned out completely different. Although in that case, we wouldn't have gotten such an iconic character causing chaos, so you could say that the sheriff here is the sole reason for the existence of the Rambo franchise and his never-ending battle with PTSD. Now, the second movie focuses less on his trauma and more on Rambo as a person, as well as on the rescue of American soldiers held in Viet Cong prison camps. At the time of this movie's release, there were a lot of myths and rumors making the rounds about Americans still being stuck in Vietnam with no one coming to rescue them. Some of these rumors were false, others turned out to be right. Rambo decides to go back to save them, not for America or some kind of ideology, but because of his personal morals and values as a soldier and warrior. He goes back to save them because they are his brothers and the only people who can understand what he is going through. The movie makes a point of blaming bureaucracy and corrupt politicians for a lot of the issues caused in Vietnam and after it, and even Rambo himself mentions his dislike for all the government suits.